Hi there. This video I'm going to talk a bit about living in my RV. First of all, why am I not living on my boat anymore? Well, about 9 months ago, I took a job in Alberta. And at the time, I thought the job was going to be anywhere from 2 to 4 years. Or that was my intention, to work it anywhere up to 4 years and get myself a nice nest egg built up from doing that. Well, of course, oil prices plummeted shortly after I got there. Something like 3 months after I got there, the price of oil just dropped. And as such, jobs started to evaporate. And eventually my job evaporated along with a whole bunch of other ones in Alberta. A lot of people leaving Alberta, unfortunately. You know what, these things come in cycles or whatever. We'll see what happens in the future or whatever. Anyway, I'd given up my boat and slip, thinking I was going to be there that long. You can't just let a boat sit untended for that many years. And, you know, I did have a good friend looking in on it or whatever, but I was asking a bit much of him to do it for that many years kind of thing. And it's not good for the boat. It's just, you know, it's left untended for that period of time. It's not going to be good. So I sold the boat, and more importantly, I gave up the slip. And if you watch my other videos, I talk a bit about the waiting list for slips, and particularly a good liveaboard slip here. You know, it could be as long as 4 years till I get a slip back. I'm really at the mercy of when somebody leaves, and if nobody leaves, I never get a slip. I guess is what it comes down to. So, left with the option of living in an apartment again here, or renting an RV, or buying an RV and living in it. I thought, well, let's go with the RV. Let's try that out. So far, it's been pretty good. So let's go with why living in an RV. First of all, freedom. If I want to go somewhere, there's no packing. I have no attachments. I just go. I don't like the neighborhood. I turn the key and go. It's just that simple. If I want to take a job in another city or in another province, I just go. Eventually I'll have to switch over the vehicle licensing, but that's fairly simple compared to all the rigmarole you have to go through to switch utilities, cancel them, going back and forth. It's just such a pain in the neck. I'd rather not do it. I don't have to pay mortgage or rent. Now, if I want to go get a campsite for a day, and you know, they do have long-term campsites in the off season, which are totally doable. They start to approach the cost of renting a room kind of thing. But you're in a campground. You'll probably have water and electricity hookup. I may do that in the off season, like particularly in the real cold, nasty times of the year, which aren't bad on Vancouver Island. But you know, December, January, February, I could very well go get a permanent site to be hooked up to most of the time, just so I can have 120 and run a little electric heater and not have to worry too much. It really depends on my work situation too, where I have to go or whatever. Generally, it's pretty easy the island's not that big. It's pretty easy to get around. It's funny, you hear people here go, oh, I got to drive all the way up there, and they're talking about a drive that's 3/4 of an hour long. It's like, you know, when you need to go somewhere in Alberta, it's hours. It's like, you know, the closest city to me was Edmonton, where I was, and that was the big city close to me, and that was 5 hours. So if I couldn't get it in town, that's how long I had to drive, so there you have it. So, another reason to, like I say, I'm not tied into the utility grid. I'm not paying the fees to be tied into this grid that I'm probably not utilizing very much because I'm just a single guy and I live pretty simply. So, you know, the cost of being tied into a grid just doesn't make sense really for me. I don't need it. In general, mortgages and rent is a bad deal for me. Over the years, I've gotten used to living in a very, very small space. Anything I'm going to buy or rent is going to be way more space than I need. It's just throwing good money after bad kind of thing. It's not worth it for me. This is me. You know, a small Class B RV is tons of space for me. I like it. So, why a Class B? Well, as I say, it's enough space for me. It's agile. It can go anywhere a kind of a contractor size van. It's a little heavier, but I've got really good aggressive tires on it. It's kind of funny. And I can make it up logging roads and through the brush and stuff like that. It's not a wide body Class B. It's basically, like I say, a contractor van, 18-foot van with a fiberglass shell thrown on the top so I can stand up in here. I've got about a good hand width above my head anywhere I walk in this thing. So it's perfectly pleasant to walk around and get at the cabinets that are mounted up there and stuff. It's perfectly fine for me. I'm between 5'8" and 5'9", depending on how much I'm slouching that day. So it's, you know what, I'm pretty good being in a unit like this. If I was 6 feet tall, this would start to get cramped. I'd probably be looking at a wide body version or whatever. If I was over 6 feet tall by any margin, all of a sudden a Class B or a Class C, I should say, starts looking better. I have owned a Class C. It was way too much space for me. Just straight off the bat, way too much room. They're more designed for small families, and that's what they're good for. You know, if you're going to park it and not move it around a lot, and you want to live in a house on wheels, hey, go for it or whatever. But if you'd like to kind of adventure around, a Class B is way better. Particularly if you're going to drive it around a lot. The Class Bs are better on fuel in general. Another reason to be in a Class B is I don't stand out too much. The Japanese have a saying, and I believe it translates to the nail that sticks up gets pounded down. That works pretty well for our culture too. If you stick out in any way, you're going to get pounded down. This does not stand out too much. Lots of people walk by it and don't give it a second look, particularly here on Vancouver Island where there's quite a few of them. Second coffee, needed that. Anyway, I don't stand out too much, and that's important, particularly if you're boondocking. Now, I mostly don't boondock. I don't stay in the city too much. At most, I'll be 2 days a week, very most. I generally will get close to town, get cell phone signal, get internet. I've got a couple different ways I deal with internet. I'll do what I need to do and then get out of there again. It's just I don't care to be in the city too much. There's exceptions to the rule. I'll go park down by the waterfront in Victoria quite a bit. I really like it there. It's a nice place to just sit here in my favorite chair and read a book. It's great. Another advantage to this is I can park in a regular parking spot and I'm not taking up multiple spots. And that starts to stick in people's craw. If you're there for a while and you're taking up multiple spots, they start to get cheesed off a little bit. Just kind of the way it goes, or, you know, somewhere they decided a parking spot should be this big. If you conform to that, people don't, you're not a nail sticking up. You conform to the rules or whatever, they don't pay attention to you. The only thing I do have to worry about is my height. I'm a little tall in this, so there's some things I kind of got to watch where I'm driving. You know what, I am a Class 1 driver or an AZ or a commercial driver, whatever. So I'm used to watching the dimensions of where I'm going and kind of judging whether I can fit or not. So this is comparatively very easy to drive. And you know what, if you're somebody that feels challenged by the size of the vehicle, don't be shy about that, but work that into your plan. Don't go out and buy a big Class C if you know you're not going to really be comfortable with it. Chances are you're always going to stay a little bit uncomfortable with it. Don't go with it. Go with a smaller vehicle and just make do with it, and be happy in being able to adventure wherever you want with zero stress. I think that's really kind of the important part to remember. This has everything I need, to be blunt. It's got a nice comfortable bed. I can stretch out full length, again, if I was 6 feet tall, I would be looking for a wide body, so the bed would be that much bigger back there or whatever. But fortunately, I'm not too tall, not too rotund yet, that it's a problem, so I can fit in this just fine. It's got a flush toilet. It's got a shower. and a kind of a sit-down bathtub or whatever. It's designed so you can sit there with your feet in the well and shower off, get wet. I soap up, then rinse off, and I can wash my feet in the water in the well if I plug it up or whatever. Works out pretty well. I do like my hot showers, so I'm not terribly sparing on water, but I do make the concession from living, when I was living on the boat, learning how to get wet, stop the water, soap up, do your thing, then rinse off. Makes sense. You use far, far less water than if you're trying to soap up while rinsing yourself off at the same time. I know that's a stretch, but hey, it took a bit. Anyway, the only thing I haven't figured out yet, a lot of people are just going to shake their head and go, we don't care, but I have not figured out a way to mount my RCBS rock chucker reloading press on this thing. On the boat it was easy. The aft cabin, I stuck a pedestal back there, mounted the press on it, it was great. Haven't quite figured that out. Do I have reloading equipment on this? Yes, I'm using a Lee hand press. You can use it, but it's slower, it's just kind of a pain in the neck. Takes a bit of a muscle to use or whatever. It's just, you know what, it's good. I've had it for a while for just doing quickie, 5 or 10 rounds at a time when I'm working on loads out in the field or whatever. It was a great way to do it. But if I want to, put together, a couple hundred rounds of something, the hand press is cumbersome, and I'd rather have my, my RCBS is just a single stage. There's nothing dramatic about it or whatever. But it's a great press. I love it. I'll probably always use that press. It'll probably last. It'll outlive me, I'm sure. I just need to figure out a way of getting it mounted in here. And you know what? I could slap something together, but I'm at loath to drill holes until I'm really sure about what I'm doing. That's the only limitation I've run into this thing so far. Oh yeah, other things this thing has. Has a furnace, hot water, gas furnace of course, forced air. It does use some electricity to run. I have 2 house batteries, and the starting battery, of course, are separated. 2 burner hot plate kind of thing, and a single sink. Again, my Class C had an actual 4 burner stove with an oven, gas oven, double sinks. It was set up just like a house. It was way better for counter space, so on and so forth. Suited for family, for a single guy like me that eats off paper towels and, just, okay, I've got a sandwich, it's going to make crumbs. Okay, I'll eat it outside. I won't use a plate. I'll just go outside and eat my sandwich. It's kind of the way I go. This thing's perfectly suited for that. Everything I need. So, where do I go? I've kind of already covered this, but I stay on Vancouver Island. This is a destination. I feel no need to go anywhere else. Honestly, a lot of people love Vancouver. I hate the place. I really don't like Vancouver. People are so rude there. It's just, you know what, I'd just rather be here. This is a destination. People come from all over the world to be here, and there's tons of things to see. It suits me, and that's why I'm back here. The place just fits me. Has everything I need. You know what? Where I am right now. If I want to go out and fire off a couple shots and spend the afternoon planking, I can do that. Or I can sit here and read a book. Nobody's going to come up here. I'm probably the only human being that's been up here in a number of years, probably since the logging. There was actually signs of camping back near the entrance, but that looks a few years old, so I don't think anybody's been up here in quite some time, unless they just kind of hiked up here and then hiked back out and didn't leave any sign of their being here. Which is, I guess, it's possible, but there's really nothing to see here. There's no, it's not on the maps, and there's nothing terribly scenic about it. It is just a nice spot. But anyway, that's where I go. I bush camp for the most part. When I'm in the city, I do boondock. As a rule of thumb, and it's really easy for me because I'm not in the city that much, but if I find myself there a lot, I don't go to the same spot any more than once a month, as a rule. Don't show up. I don't go to the same area even. I try and move around a fair bit. I don't want to be a familiar sight. Again, don't be the nail that sticks up. You will get pounded down. And a lot of the parking laws are enforced by complaint. They're complaint driven in Victoria. I know that for sure in Esquimalt. They're complaint driven. They don't really, they obviously go out and look for obvious infractions or whatever. But if you're parked in residential parking, they really won't do anything about you unless somebody complains. Because if they see something that isn't normally there, they assume it's somebody staying overnight. Guests, whatever. That's how parking's supposed to work. And as long as you're just a temporary guest, everything works fine. Where people run into trouble is when they keep going to the same spot. Oh, this is a great spot, and then they move in. Well, yeah, that's going to annoy house owners, particularly if your RV is an eyesore. You know what? I probably should have covered this in the early part, and I'll just do it now. If your RV is really ostentatious, you're a nail that's sticking up. You will get pounded down. And conversely, if you're driving scabby old rat that's held together by duct tape, you're a nail that's sticking up, and you're going to get pounded down. You want your RV in decent shape, just like every other vehicle on the road, clean, not too fancy. Nothing crazy, no crazy paint job, no decals, nothing. Just plain, ordinary. If somebody's walking by talking on their phone, you don't want them stopping and looking at you. You just, for the most part, if they're just walking by ignoring you, you're doing the right thing. Good work. Pretty easy to do on Vancouver Island just because there are so many RVs and stuff like that. It's very easy to disappear into the background of just people parking their RVs on the street. Anyway, where was I? How expensive is this? Gas for driving around is between 15 to 18 liters per 100 kilometers when I'm traveling. 18 liters for in town, 15 liters on the perfectly flat open stretches of the highway. And I do not race along. I find my best speed is about 90 kilometers an hour, and that's what I'll do. I'll stay in the right lane and do that speed. And plenty of people pass me, and I generally just kind of hang with the trucks. That's my spot. And that speed could go as high as 100, 105 on some of the higher speed highways on the prairies and stuff where they're a $1.10. I won't do a full $1.10. I'll keep around 100. I'll go whatever speed the truck traffic's doing, just to not get in the way of anybody. They're passing the truck, they'll be passing me too. There it is. But I don't race around, so that's pretty good mileage for an RV. Again, 15 to 18 liters per 100 kilometers. If you want to translate that to miles per gallon, go ahead. I have no clue what it is. Now, if I'm driving around town, just doing errands, which I try not to do, I plan my trip out ahead of time, hit everything, and then get out of there. Don't sit in traffic. But if I do get caught just dorking around town, it'll be as high as 20 liters per 100 kilometers. So I try not to do that. That's pretty high. That can be expensive really fast, so I just don't do it. My propane usage. Here's the surprise. The propane fridge is actually very conservative. I leave it running all the time. At first when I was using it, I was switching to 12 volt when I was driving around, and then switching it back to propane, like relighting it and getting it going again. Totally not worth it. I just leave it going all the time. It uses hardly any propane, and if I'm not careful, it will freeze stuff. I threw 2 beer in the freezer, and beer's an extravagance for me. I don't usually drink beer, but I thought, you know what, I'll have a couple or whatever, and I wanted them really cold, so I threw them in the freezer. I didn't forget about them so much as just not really pay attention to the time. They were in there less than a half an hour, maybe 20 minutes, and they froze and popped. And the beer that spilled out froze too. So I had kind of a mess to clean up, and by the time I was done, I had kind of flat beer and only about one of them when I combined the two. And they were 2 different beers, so I was upset. I was disappointed and a bit despondent that I had ruined a beer or whatever. So anyway, I dealt with it, cleaned it up or whatever, and learned my lesson. So the propane fridge is very effective. It keeps food perfect. I can keep milk, I can keep meat, stuff like that, no problem. If I want ice cubes, I can have ice cubes. I don't normally bother with them, but if I did want them, I could have them. There you have it. And my propane usage for in the summer is $17 to $18. It's about 20 pounds for a month. $17 to $18 per month. Now, in the winter with using the furnace, I'm going to guesstimate my high is going to be about $40 per month. And that's running that quite a bit. I've tried running it. I use it a lot when I don't need to, just to see how it uses and see how it affects usage. It heats up really quick in here and stays warm in here pretty good because of the fiberglass cap that's insulated. So this thing's pretty decent that way. I'll probably try and go with a diesel drip wood burning appliance of some kind eventually, but it looks like I'm just going to have to build my own, so I can do that. I'm a welder. I know how to MIG, TIG, all those things, and I've worked in the exhaust, spark arrestor, building that kind of stuff, so building a wood burning fireplace isn't a stretch for me at all. So I'll end up be doing that, partly because the one that I've found that even closely resembles to what I want is too big, and it's about $3,000, which is just ridiculous for what they're offering. So I'm just going to make my own, probably out of stainless or baby metal, just regular metal. We'll see. We'll see. My water usage. Because of the way I have a shower and such, I'm not particularly sparing on water. I have to fill my water tank once per week. And that's the one, that's probably another disadvantage of the Class B. Your water tanks are generally a little bit smaller than what they would be with a Class C. So I'm off in search of potable water once per week. While I'm at it, I usually fill up, 2 or 4. Right now I have 4 of these things, just milk jugs with water in them. They're just a quick and easy way to get a drink of water, fill the kettle. It's faster than turning on the electric water pump and turning the faucet. It's just, when I'm looking for my morning coffee, I want it as fast as possible. So I use these to fill up the kettle. It's just a handy way to have water. If I'm sitting around outside and I want to drag water, I don't refrigerate it. I just drink it right like temperature as is or whatever. It's kind of just something I've always done. Anyway, so water once per week. If I didn't shower in here, I could probably stretch it out to a month and a half even. I really don't use a whole ton of water, so that would be purely drinking water out of it. And doing my dishes, literally probably a month. But I like my showers and I prefer to just do them in here. I don't have to pay for it or anything like that. I don't have to pay for a camping spot just so I could have a shower. I just do it in here. It's got the space for it. All good. Septic pump out. I do it once every 2 weeks. I could probably stretch that out quite a bit, but I don't. I don't want it sitting in there, particularly in warmer weather. There's really good enzyme solutions that basically break it down into inert material pretty quickly, and I do use those, so it's not like it's constantly going to be gassing off and stinking or whatever if I did let it sit in there. But just, I don't want stuff building up inside the tank or whatever. And it's, there's lots of stations to do it. A number of them are free here on the island, and usually while I'm driving by, I'll go do it. And that turns out to be once every 2 weeks. And while I'm at it, I usually get the potable water. Most of them have flush water and potable water separately. And that's important. Don't use the flush water as your potable water. Probably is potable water, but it might not be. They separate the two. I call it, okay, this is flush water, I'm not going to drink it. Who knows where they're getting that from. There you have it. So I guess that's it for my utilities. Septic pump out, potable water. Septic pump out, the cost can be anywhere from free all the way up to $12 to use the facilities here. And that's like at the RV parts places, sales places. A few of them have pump out stations. They tend to be a little more pricey than the ones in the parks and stuff like that. But there's a website you can go. It's just type up Sandy Dump and the website will pop up. And it's got a listing of most of the sites that are across Canada and the US. It's pretty cool. User generated, I believe, so it's not perfect by any means, but it gives you some really good tips, and it is up to date. If a campground's closed down, they'll note it down on that and say the sandy dump is no longer in use or whatever. They'll let you know. The only other thing left to talk about is car insurance. This is insured as an RV. If I'm going to drive it all the time to work and stuff like that, I will insure it as such. There's not a big difference in cost, really. I've got a good record, so it's not a big deal. But it's just, you know, you know what? If you're renting an apartment and you're going to have a car and insurance anyway, why not just have this and live in it, kind of thing? And that's your big cost for doing this. Really, is your gas, obviously, your car insurance, and the price of the vehicle. If you're going to have the vehicle and the insurance anyway, it's really easy to do. Unlike, you know, kind of, this is where it gets easier than a boat. A boat, generally, you have to spend a lot more money than what you would for an RV. Class Bs are a little bit more money, but that's because they're easier to deal with and they're better on gas. Class Cs, initially, a lot of people go with Class Cs just because of the cost, particularly around here. They're dirt cheap. Why? Because they're kind of cumbersome and you have to pay so much to park them somewhere. That's why. You can't really boondock with them. People will complain about them. They take up too much room. You don't have the liberty you do with a Class B. So I think the initial expense of going with a Class B, well worth it. Well worth it. You'll more than recoup that in gas if you're driving around at all. Anyway, I guess to finish this off, do I get into trouble? No. I've never had anybody say anything about this at all. Few times when I've been somewhere and there's another RV and I'm outside, the person from that RV will come over and talk to me about my RV. And likewise, I'll talk to him about his RV. That's it. That's the only time people say anything about it. When I go in to get work done on it or oil changes or anything like that, people will comment on the tires like, whoa, nice tires, because they are kind of outrageous for it. Initially, you don't really notice. People don't look at tires. Just one of those things. But when they get up close, and car guys will notice right away that these are clearly off-road tires. The exact same tires I threw on my Jeep, specifically for getting through mud and gravel and snow and stuff up in Alberta. I threw them on this thing. They're great for the logging roads or whatever. When I do the video tour, I'll kind of point them out. They're great tires. I know they work really well in snow and ice from my exposure in Alberta with them. So when it came to choosing tires, I kind of went, oh, I want those on my RV. And they kind of gave me a funny look and quietly did it. So there you go. But no, I never get into any trouble. Do I drive slow? Yes, but I try and get out of people's way. I'm not aggressive. When people are driving aggressively around me, I back off and let them get out of their way. If somebody wants to drive like a 5-year-old throwing a tantrum, that's fine. I'm a professional driver. Stay away from them. Chances are they think they're a good driver. Well, they're not, so you kind of want to get away from them because they're going to be in an accident sooner or later. There's no need for you to be close to it. You know, let the accident happen up ahead of you, and you can kind of be the 20th car going by going, yep, I saw that coming. And you know what, honestly, it's happened to me more than once where I've seen somebody driving like a dummy, and they've gotten themselves in trouble, and later on I've been driving by. There'll be a few cars stopped or whatever, and by then I don't need to be the one that stopped talking to the police, explaining to them what I saw or what happened. It's just better that way. And you know what, in a larger, slower vehicle, same as a truck, it behooves you to be really polite about the space you're taking up. Yes, you do have to own your lane. When you need to merge, do it well ahead of time. When you want a different lane, get into it well ahead of time. People like to play games where they know somebody. When it's clear that they're trying to get into a lane, they'll purposely will get up beside them and block them. And I see this on the highway in merge lanes all the time. It's like, what are you people thinking? That's crazy. Really dangerous. Really, really dangerous. You know, it kind of annoys me as a firearm owner. I know very well that if somebody were to mishandle a firearm in public, dangerously like they handled their car, they'd be taken away in handcuffs. Clearly, there'd be a SWAT team. They'd take them away in handcuffs, and that person would never own a firearm again in their life. Done. They would seize their firearms. They would get nothing in return for them, and they would never own one again. Just like that. Yet people do equally dangerous things with their vehicles, and statistically, vehicles are a much worse weapon than any firearms are here in Canada. They're way more dangerous. We kind of put up with it. What's with that? But anyway, I don't want to be part of the problem, so I try and drive safely and politely, and don't be the nail that sticks up. Comes down to that. Anyway, I hope you got something out of the video or enjoyed it or whatever. If you have any questions or comments, do leave them below, and I'll answer them as soon as I can. I'll probably do a video walk around of the RV a little bit later. It's a nice dim day to do it, so I'll probably do it today. Once I kind of clean up and make myself space to walk around a bit. Embarrassed to say. Anyway, I guess this video is long enough as is, so have yourself a good one.